Hey, loyal listeners, this is a reminder of how the podcast actually works. First, we'll have a conversation about a specific topic, then you'll learn the unknown grammar structures and vocabulary touched on it. And at the end, some advice for improving your English. Do not forget that the script and words are written in the description. Now, listen to it, get it, and never forget it.
Welcome back to Talk Fluent, Talk Real. This is the podcast where we chat about topics that hit close to home, help you improve your English, and maybe even give you a fresh perspective on life. I'm Jake.
And I'm Mia. Today's topic is something that comes around every year and gets us all hyped. New Year resolutions. Love them, hate them, or just ignore them altogether. We're diving deep into why we make them, why most of us fail at keeping them, and how you can actually succeed this time around.
Yeah, we've all been there. January 1st rolls around, and suddenly we're convinced we're going to become the best version of ourselves overnight. New year, new me, right? But by Valentine's Day, those big dreams are usually just distant memories.
Exactly. But why is that? Are we just bad at following through, or is there more to the story? We're here to explore it all, and of course, we'll throw in some practical tips along the way. Oh, and don't forget, we'll highlight useful English phrases and vocabulary for you to learn.
So stick around because this is going to be both fun and useful. Let's get into it. All right, let's kick things off with the big question. Why do we even make New Year resolutions? What's the psychology behind it?
Great question. At its core, making resolutions is about hope and renewal. The start of a new year feels like a blank canvas. It's a chance to let go of the mistakes and challenges of the past year and look forward to something better.
Yeah, it's like that feeling when you open a new notebook. Everything is clean and fresh and you feel inspired to do your best work. But why is January 1st so special? I mean, technically, we could decide to change our lives any day of the year.
You're absolutely right. January 1st is just an arbitrary date, but culturally it has become a moment of collective reflection. Plus, after all the overindulgence during the holidays, too much food, too much spending, we're ready to hit the reset button.
So it's kind of like a cultural detox. But here's something I've been wondering. Do people in other parts of the world make resolutions too? Or is it mostly a Western thing?
Good question. While the tradition is strongest in Western countries, the idea of setting goals for self-improvement is universal. In some Asian cultures, for example, the Lunar New Year is a time for reflection and new beginnings. It's not so much about resolutions, but about letting go of the old and welcoming the new.
Interesting. So whether it's January 1st or some other significant date, the idea is the same. We all crave a fresh start. But here's the kicker. If we all want to improve, why do so few of us actually succeed?
I'm sorry for interrupting this conversation. I'm just here to remind you that all the vocabulary is in the description. Now let's continue.
Let's break this down. The biggest reason resolutions fail is that we set ourselves up for failure from the start. We make these massive, unrealistic goals like, I'm going to lose 20 pounds in a month, or I'll save half my paycheck every week. When we can't keep up, we get discouraged and give up.
Yeah, it's like trying to run a marathon when you've never even jogged a mile. Another big mistake is making too many resolutions at once. We spread ourselves too thin, and nothing sticks.
Exactly. And don't forget about habit formation. Research shows it takes an average of 66 days to form a new habit. Most of us give up way before then because we expect instant results. When we don't see progress right away, we lose motivation.
Speaking of habits, have you ever heard of decision fatigue? It's this idea that the more decisions we have to make in a day, the harder it becomes to make good ones. So by the time you're deciding whether to hit the gym after work, you're already mentally drained.
Yes, that's why planning and routine are so important. If you decide ahead of time that Monday, Wednesday, and Friday are gym days, you don't have to think about it. You just go. But another big reason resolutions fail is lack of support. When you're trying to change on your own, it's so much harder.
Totally. It's like trying to move a heavy couch by yourself. If you have a friend to help, it's so much easier. So maybe the key is finding an accountability partner, someone who'll cheer you on and call you out when you're slacking.
Absolutely. And one more thing. People often focus on outcomes rather than systems. Instead of saying, I want to lose 10 pounds, Focus on building healthier habits, like eating more vegetables or walking 30 minutes a day. The results will follow.
That's such a great point. It's not about being perfect, it's about being consistent.
So let's get into solutions. How do we actually stick to our resolutions? The first thing is to make your goals specific and measurable. Instead of saying, I want to save money, say, I'll save $50 every week for the next 6 months. It's clear, and you can track your progress.
Right. And start small. If your goal is to work out, don't commit to an hour-long session every day right away. Start with 10 minutes a few times a week. Once that feels easy, you can build on it.
Another great tip is to tie your new habit to an existing one. For example, if you want to start flossing, do it right after you brush your teeth. That way, it becomes part of your routine.
Yeah, and don't forget to reward yourself. Celebrate your wins, even the small ones. If your goal is to read more, treat yourself to a new book after finishing one. Positive reinforcement works wonders.
And here's something people often overlook. Reflect on your why. Why do you want to achieve this goal? If your why is strong enough, it'll keep you going when things get tough.
That's so true. And one last tip. Be patient with yourself. Change takes time, and it's okay to mess up. The important thing is to keep going.
Hey guys, you've already listened the whole conversation. Then we're going to move on to the grammar and vocabulary section, where your knowledge will be reinforced and your doubts will be clear. So keep going.
Hey everyone, it's Nicolas here. I'm your friendly language guide for today's episode. I'm jumping in to break down some of the grammar and vocabulary Jake and Mia used, so you can not only enjoy the podcast, but also learn a ton from it. Let's dive in. 1. Present simple tense. This is your bread and butter tense, simple but super effective. It's used when Jake and Mia talk about facts or routines. For example, New Year resolutions come around every year. It takes time to form a habit. Here, the verbs come and takes describe things that are always true, like universal facts or habits. 2. Present continuous tense. Now, this one is for things that are happening right now, or trends. Notice these examples. We're diving deep into why we make them. People are focusing on outcomes instead of systems. The verbs are diving and are focusing show ongoing actions. You can think of it as describing something in motion. 3. Modals for possibility and advice. Modal verbs are tiny powerhouses that make your sentences more dynamic. For instance, you can make your goals measurable. We should focus on building habits. Here, can shows ability or possibility, and should gives a suggestion. Modal verbs are perfect for adding flavor to your sentences. Now let's talk about the cool words and phrases you heard in today's episode. I'll give you the meanings and how you can use them in real life. 1. Resolutions. Meaning, decisions to make changes or improvements in your life. Example, many people make resolutions at the start of the year. 2. Accountability. Meaning, taking responsibility for your actions or having someone to help you stay on track. Example, an accountability partner helps you stick to your goals. 3. Consistency. Meaning, doing something regularly and reliably. Example, consistency is more important than doing things perfectly. 4. Positive reinforcement. Meaning, rewarding a behavior to encourage it. Example, treat yourself to something nice after completing a goal as positive reinforcement. 5. Expressions. First, hit the reset button. Meaning, start fresh or begin again. Example, the new year feels like hitting the reset button on life. Second, set yourself up for failure. Meaning, do something that makes failure likely. Example, unrealistic goals can set you up for failure. Third, stick to, meaning, stay committed to something. Example, stick to your plan, even if it gets tough. Now here's a challenge for you. Try using one of these phrases in your next conversation. For example, tell a friend, I'm trying to stick to my new habit of reading more. Trust me, practicing like this makes learning fun and effective. And remember, if you have questions about anything Jake and Mia discussed, I've got your back.
Thanks for listening to this second episode of the Talk Fluent, Talk Real podcast. See you in the next time.